Since it's that time of the year again when people begin to plan out their planting for the season, I figured I'd cultivate an episode from a short recording I did a few years ago about Roger Corman's 1960 B-horror comedy, Little Shop of Horrors. Let this be a cautionary episode of the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. To celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast is taking to the road. This summer, I will travel from Chicago to Colorado Springs, recording place-based podcast episodes and collecting short oral histories from members of the public along the way. This is not a retrospective project. It is a living one, built on the idea that history is not only something we inherit, but something we actively create. Visit everything-history.com/America250 to see how you can get involved in this public history initiative. Welcome to the Everything is a Primary Source podcast, the show where we navigate history through popular culture. I'm your host, Eric Salmonson. I'm a social studies teacher, historian, and pop culture enthusiast. Each episode, I sit down with everyday people to discuss the media, objects, places, and events that shape us and reveal what they say about the past, as well as who we are now. The Everything is a Primary Source podcast is, therefore, your history, my history, our history through popular culture. So I am here in Prescott Park in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, pre-show before Little Shop of Horrors, and I'm here with Seymour from the show, Andrew, who plays Seymour. And thanks for joining the podcast today.
Yeah, of course.
And it's nice that you're getting to perform, because I feel like all season long I've seen one cancellation after another due to the weather.
Yep.
Has it been kind of rough?
Yeah, I was in the show last year. I was in Footloose, and we had one or two cancellations with that, but definitely this year has been a little tricky with the weather. But hopefully we get to kind of wrap it up. And
how many more weeks are you doing?
We have one show tonight, and then we just have next weekend, so 4 more shows after tonight.
I imagine that probably makes even bigger crowds then.
For
when
sure.
There's a
I've
cancellation.
definitely seen a lot of turnout the past week, just because people are trying to kind of get it in before we close. But
would you say that this is a perfect spot? I love the set. I love all the stuff. Everything seems to be. Have you seen Little Shop of Horrors in other presentations?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a movie that I grew up on when I was younger, so I was super familiar with it from then. And then, I've seen plenty of productions, and I did it in high school too during COVID and everything. And so it was virtual, which was tricky. But
I saw a lot of that happening, and people got really, and I would say what I'm doing here also is a product of COVID, that a lot of people really virtual stuff, like they got creative with it. Different things that they could come up with.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I did. I did learn some useful things. Yeah,
there's a few things you can carry on with you if you want. But so you're going to be going on in a little while, so I want to keep you for too long, maybe an hour. No. But the question that I think from my dissection template that I think works well is, what ideas and behaviors are conveyed through Little Shop of Horrors? So there's a couple different iterations of the story. The first was a Roger Corman movie from 1960, Jack Nicholson's first movie. I have a tape of that I was going to bring, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. I feel so bad. And on the tape, which I think came out right around the time that the musical movie came out in the 80s, it has Jack Nicholson on the cover of it with Audrey too, and I'm like, I don't think he played a very big character in that movie.
He really wasn't. And his character actually isn't even in the musical version.
Yeah.
But
they just, because he had become a star by then, they're like, well, I'll just slap him on there. But the original story and then the musical movie that was directed by Frank Oz, and now it's showed up on Broadway, so it has, what, is the message consistent? Are the ideas always the same, or do you think that changes every time it's produced?
I think for the most part it's pretty much the same. A big conversation that I personally had, and just as a cast we had with our director Tom Alsop, is just about like themes in general and staying true to that whole like B horror movie style. And I think for me, like the one thing that really sticks out is like the theme of like be careful what you wish for, and just like the human condition and greed and kind of just like the unconventional hero, I guess, aspect of it. And I feel like it just makes a really compelling story because you care so much about this character even though they're doing all these terrible things.
Yeah.
So I think it's a unique story in that sense where it's like the hero isn't so perfect. And I think it's a really great message, and I think it's a lot deeper than a lot of people really see on the surface level. But
it's funny because those first couple versions of Little Shop of Horrors, they're separated by over 20 years, but they do still fit into that umbrella of Cold War, post World War II, people being fascinated by things like aliens and nuclear atomic stuff. It's an atomic age story. And also, like you said, the unlikely hero, the person that you're rooting for that you wouldn't, kind of reminds me of like stories like Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
It has like the you're rooting for the underdog instead of the clear-cut alpha male. Why don't you root for somebody who is, a little less likely to be, and somebody who's doing something not necessarily, like you said, conventionally good. A lot of unsung heroes in reality in that time period too.
Yeah.
That kind of matches up with. Would you say that, going back to you mentioned about the B movie, the B horror movie kind of thing, that's never really gone away. I mean, they still make them, Why do you think that horror films and scary stories and unnerving type stuff oftentimes falls to the lower budget picture houses?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something really fascinating about the fact that, like, there's just pure chaos, but it's completely real and authentic to the characters. And for me, I think that's one of my favorite parts about the show is, like, they say all the time, like, playing truthfully in imaginary circumstances. Like, you have this crazy situation that makes no sense at all, but the way that the actors kind of convey the situation, like, it's so compelling and interesting, and it makes for really funny moments and really dramatic moments. And it's kind of hard to get that in any other sort of style, I think.
Yeah. It was funny because by the 80s, when the movie was made, there was a B-movie actor in the White House, Ronald Reagan, and I remember reading about him. I don't know if it has stayed true for all that entire history of B-movies, but he had to provide his own wardrobe for the movies he made. They didn't have budget even for that. Does that go on with this, or does somebody provide the wardrobe for you?
No, we have a wardrobe supervisor and costume designers and everything, so it's definitely a bit more glamorous than that. But they definitely took a lot of inspiration from both the musical movie and the original. But yeah, luckily we don't have to do too much for ourselves.
Shop
there.
at Goodwill for all your stuff. It's funny you mentioned about the thing about people committing to the role. I was over at Strawberry Bank doing the same thing just a little while ago, about an hour ago, and a gentleman chose Dr. Strangelove as his primary source, and was talking about the actor Slim Pickens, who is the pilot of one of the bombers going over to Russia. And I guess Stanley Kubrick, he was telling me, he's like, Stanley Kubrick he told everybody in the cast and the crew, he's like, don't tell them this is a satire. He's like, he thinks it's a real dramatic role, and he's going to play it that way. So he played it straight, and that's what made it that much more, like, funny. It was watching somebody totally committing to their crazy role, thinking that, not knowing it's a comedy, So I appreciate that, and it's almost like a lot of the actors and things that go through the B movie, you have that more raw style acting they commit more to it. It's like it's not like, oh, just get me for my trailer when you're ready for my shot. It's like they are rolling up their sleeves and getting to work on making the picture as well. Now, do you have aspirations to go into the movies and stuff? Have you been in movies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going into my junior year at the Hart School in Connecticut for musical theater. So I would love to perform in any capacity. I'm mainly focused on musical theater and like live performance, but I take acting for the camera classes and stuff like that too. But I mean, I'm really open to anything. I play instruments too, so I'd love to teach and do anything like that. But
I mean, it seems to me that usually when you see some of the most talented actors in Hollywood, really anywhere, they are multifaceted.
Yeah,
it's I think of like Anne Hathaway. You know, for the longest time, it was just Disney. Princess, like was that one that she was in, Princess Diaries or something like that.
Yeah.
Cutesy movies and a couple other things. And I saw her one time singing.
Yeah.
Les Miserables. I'm like, oh my God, she, she's very talented in that regard too. And then when it's almost like when you're watching like a college, even like a Division III basketball game or something like that. It's like you look at the guys' bios and you're like, oh, they're like the top players in all of their schools. So like when you were in high school, I assume you did musical theater? And
Yep. I mean, I did this show in high school, like I said, so that was crazy. But I've been doing theater in school since like I was like in preschool. I did my first little play.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of been a thing for me. And last year working here was like my first kind of like professional like paid gig.
That's
so
cool.
It's kind of awesome to be back here again because it's really
throw
special
that on
for
the
me.
back of the headshot. And, when you get those casting jobs. But that is, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, of course.
This has been really cool, and I hope that this is. I don't think my podcast is going to be much for your resume, but it's. I think that you're stepping into, on behalf of all of us who love the stage, the screen. Thank you for continuing the tradition on, and in this case, the tradition started in 1960 with Little Shop of Horrors and Roger Corman's ultimate B movie, extravaganza, and that celebration of hardworking acting continues. So thanks again for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything as a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.